So this was the special slash movie that I almost scrapping in favor of the Gravity Falls review that I did weeks ago. And the fact that I had second thoughts of doing this, mainly the fact that I've already did a movie, which was Fred 2 Night of the Living Fred. But considering I want this Halloween Mania to be spectacular, especially on the final days of October, I ended up reviving my review of this special slash movie, Underfist, Halloween Bash. I did see bits and pieces of this material of the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. In fact, I did saw the second song of this when I watched it a while ago, but I didn't remember what it was. In fact, it just feels a lot more awkward to see how it was playing out because I didn't watch the entire thing and only got into towards the end until I watched something else. Underfist really felt like one of those ideals that Cartoon Network needed to do in order to stay relevant, but considering that nowadays they ended up reviving ideals due to the circumstances of the Warner Bros. Discovery situation, I'm not gonna lie, their way of doing this spin-off after the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy came to an end, it's honestly for the best and it makes sense for them to do a spin-off like this. But let's get into the main plot of the film. Owen is going trick-or-treating with Billy, Mandy, and Grim, but he gets left behind because he is upset that he's not going to do anything extraordinary like them, mainly the fact that he's a nerd. Then Mindy, Mandy's enemy in school, wants him to ring the doorbell at the house that is mostly terrifying, but at the same time has candy inside. But once Owen pressed the button, which is a gem, the house turns into a portal that leads to the underworld. As it turns out, Mindy was a witch the entire time, while Bun Bun is the leader of the chocolate bars who came into the real world, and his plan is to have them eat the children rather than the children eat them since that they're candy. I really feel like that this entire plot centering around Owen teaming up with the other characters from the main series really gave me second thoughts considering that I didn't know what this whole thing was about when I watched bits and pieces of it a long time ago. Characters like Scar, Haas, Jeff, Fred Burger teaming up together, even though that Scar doesn't usually team up for the majority of this movie, really feels a lot more awkward pair-up, because as much as pair-ups are a lot more unique by having fan favorites coming together, with them teaming up with Owen, who is the weakest link out of the five, who ended up becoming Underfist at the end of the film, really sums up how this is the most random thing that anyone else would make back at the time where Cartoon Network was dealing with live action and dealing with way more competition involving Nickelodeon and Disney Channel. As much as I understand that the live action thing was a mistake on their part, it really feels like that this is a ditch effort in order to have them stay relevant by having an IP continue on by doing a spin-off. If Cartoon Network ended up keeping the original series by having more seasons, then it would have ended up in seasonal launch by having these characters be a lot more worse, which, to tell you the truth, with my experiences of witnessing the fandomization of Billy and Mandy, it's honestly for the best. But the biggest reason onto why that this spin-off didn't become a thing after this movie is the fact that the creator's contract with Cartoon Network ended up expiring, which means that this is the finale of the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. And considering the effort that they put into this movie, considering that this is the third or fourth movie involving Billy and Mandy when it comes to the two movies that they released in 2007, I'm really getting the impression that they really wanted to stay relevant by having other characters that ended up becoming fan favorites of this show, with them taking the spotlight. Even though that I'm not a fan of Haas, Scar, Jeff, or even Fred Burger, it kind of sums up that they would go to those characters in order to have them carry a spin-off than having Owen do most of it. Because, to tell you the truth, as much as I'm surprised that Owen was actually good in this, him carrying the entire spin-off on his back isn't going to work. Like, I'm not gonna lie, for how Owen is written in this, than how he was in the main series, it really shows that they're putting more attention on how to make him sympathetic than him being mostly Billy's friend in the main series. Like, I did remember times where he mostly contributes something by being Billy's friend, and he's supposed to be awkward, which does explain to why he's friends with Billy. And looking at him in this entire film where he's willing to do something by himself without the assistance of Billy, Mandy, and Grim, despite them contributing with giving them supplies, I really got the impression that Owen is willing to get some development without any assistance with the other characters. Because even though that I didn't remember the first movie that they released involving Billy and Mandy in 2007, I do remember Owen kissing Mandy. And less said about that, the better, because with Owen's crush towards Mandy is something that I do not like. I think if they actually have that in this, then it wouldn't even work out for Owen's character whatsoever. For the other characters, mainly Jeff and Fredbearburger, since that they're probably more of a fan favorites than Haas and Scar, it's no surprise that they would be friends with Owen in a scenario where they're not like other monsters from the main series. Like, the difference is that between Fredbearburger's character design in this and his original design is that I do remember that he doesn't have much emotions other than the brain freeze. And just seeing him having different emotions, it kind of gave me the impression that they're trying to give him nuance than just being mostly happy all the time and actually have different emotions. Granted, I don't watch the majority of the original series to understand where they're going with Fredbearburger's character, but if I see more emotions in this than anything that I remember, then it kind of explains that they're trying to start off somewhere when it comes to Fredbearburger's character. And when it comes to Jeff, I'm assuming if Billy is still a main character, then they would still want the stick of him being afraid of spirals, which someone concluded in the Spider Queen movie, but considering that he is still afraid of Jeff, then it's honestly a lose-lose situation while also being redundant or not coming up with something different. So him being part of Underfist really sums up of what Jeff needs a different direction in the same ways as Fredbearburger and Owen. When it comes to Mr. Bun and Mindy being the antagonists, I'm gonna be truthfully real that seeing Mindy in this position really felt off-putting. Like, it's not terrible, but this was the only moments that I did remember when I saw bits and pieces of this a long time ago. So, the way I look at it, seeing Mindy in this just feels really awkward considering the type of character she is. Well, she wants to be popular at school and proving to be better than anyone else. So, seeing her as a witch really put me off guard. But watching this entire movie from beginning to end, it really gave me the impression that they wanted to give her some nuance by not making her the popular girl all the time, considering that Mandy isn't a main character in this. And there's no interaction between Mindy and Mandy in this. It's either the fact that they want to move forward from the aftermath of the Spider Queen movie while they turn back to being enemies again, or the fact that they just don't want to repeat the same elements as the other elements that they did in the original. But let's dive in on the whole Underfist thing involving Owen, Scar, Haas, Jeff, and Fredbearburger being part of it. To tell you the truth, the scene, well, after they're done doing trick-or-treating because it's part of the plan and it didn't work out, they ended up getting separated, and with most of them being really depressed, it really gave me the impression that it's a way of showcasing Owen trying to be better by being himself rather than being a nerd. Even though that he'll end up staying as a nerd, but the difference of seeing Owen in this in comparison to the series is that last year I did review the jacked up Halloween special involving Billy and Mandy. Well, Owen did contribute on stopping the antagonist, even if it may be goofy. But considering in this he's not doing anything goofy and it's mostly in a scenario where he is the main character in comparison to Billy and Mandy and Grimm, his power of some sort is him transforming into different costumes when it comes to Egypt or maybe a vampire maybe, and they don't explain on how it's possible. Like, it may does in this, but at the same time I don't know how. It showcases him having powers that he knows, or it's mostly exclusive towards, and it will probably explain if the spin-off actually became a thing rather than this being a one-off thing. Even if this is only to save Halloween, it really gave me the impression that if this did become a spin-off, then Owen will probably have different costumes rather than the one that he has. Yes, I'm fully aware that he doesn't wear a vampire costume with vampire powers. It's just me thinking of what his powers are mostly capable of. It's just that when you have these types of elements involving Owen's character, it kind of gave you the impression that he might do something else when it comes to other situations. But then again, considering that this is the last of the grim adventures of Billy and Mandy, his victory towards the end is literally the only thing that he's ever going to get in this entire franchise when it comes to victorious like the other characters from the main series. Sometimes when a show needs a spin-off for the sake of having Cartoon Network be relevant while all the while giving the characters the spotlight, then this would have been the perfect opportunity. Like, granted, I wouldn't be able to give it a chance while it was airing if it did, but this actually appealed to me now, judging of how I was originally going to scrap it. And thinking about the potential in this, it's honestly for the best if the creator extended his contract by only doing the spin-off and then wrapping up Billy and Mandy permanently without doing anything else. Granted, I understand that he has other plans outside of Cartoon Network, but in the state of Cartoon Network in the late 2000s, there was more of a reason on having your cartoons being revived. Like, even back then, people wanted a sequel of Codename Kids Next Door, and even to this day, but judging of how that they were in the pickle back then, I would say that the situation was a lot more severe back then in comparison to now, because the only situation that they're dealing with now is Warner Bros. Discovery holding them back. And to tell you the truth, what Nickelodeon and Disney Channel did back then is what held Cartoon Network back, but at the same time, it was competition that made sense. For everything else in this, when it comes to the two songs, I did enjoy the first song, Son, by Mindy, but when it comes to the second song by Jeff and Fred, it's mostly a mixed bag, and it's honestly surprising I didn't remember anything of that song back then. But at the same time, I really feel like that everything else in this movie in particular is basically potential that could have been, considering that while the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy did took itself seriously in the main series, this way of taking itself seriously is to showcasing different characters. It is honestly surprising that Billy and Mandy managed to have a spin-off that actually did a lot more interest directions, even though that I've watched this way late after a decade and a half, or at this point, everything else about Billy and Mandy have become classics in Cartoon Network, and reviving it now wouldn't make a difference. But when it comes to this spin-off, I wouldn't mind it being something that they would do nowadays in order to increase their funding due to the situation that they're dealing with Warner Bros. Discovery. But the plus side in all of this is that I actually did a review of this before it was too late. Again, this is the final week of Halloween Mania 2, and Halloween is just in 2 days away. And tomorrow I'm gonna be uploading my Lonely Vibes video involving my schedule of Halloween, so it's honestly best to wrap everything up with this being one of the final videos, considering that I've been flip-flopping on this schedule, which is going to explain a lot when it comes to tomorrow's video on how I felt on doing this schedule. Yes, I am going to be tackling my 2024 schedule of Halloween, just like the other schedules that I did over the years in October. Well, minus 2018. When it comes to Underfist, I enjoy it, even if it may not be one of my favorites throughout this entire Halloween Mania. I have to admit that it did surprise me when it comes to the elements on taking a different direction. Even though that is a shame that we're not going to see this spin-off of its full potential, even if it may be more than a decade and a half later. I'm sure if it did become a spin-off today, people will probably give it a chance, myself included. But that's just mainly on how it will have taken due to the audience that it's going to deal with nowadays. But like every other show that gets revived, I'm giving this movie a 7.5 out of 10.